Hello, I'm Megan Robinson. This is Culture Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a very special guest, Ken Scales from Scalesology, a longtime friend, longtime colleague of mine, and I've really had the pleasure of watching him grow and scale his own company, be in a myriad of positions, and really watching how he brings the values and the culture out to get the best from his team, the best for his clients, has been truly inspiring. I'm so excited to talk about how you can scale your own culture and how your values are really going to play at every stage of organizational growth. Ken Scales is the founder and CEO of Scalesology and really ensures that they're delivering innovative and scalable solutions for clients while providing a positive atmosphere of integrity and respect for his employees. Ken's led technology company operations and sales teams for over 20 years. He's created and managed the development of multiple technology services and products, which gain national awards for innovation. His mindset for listening to his clients and delivering problem-solving solutions has increased his clients' efficiency using technology, sales of products and services, and overall revenue. Ken has a Bachelor of Arts degree and a Master of Public Affairs degree from Indiana University. For everyone that could not tell that we were giggling on this, it took me 3 times not to call Ken Skills Ken Robinson. Um, Clearly, we go way back when I start giving my own last name to him. But Ken, thank you so much, Ken Scales, for joining us and welcome.
Well, Megan, thank you for having me. And you're right, we've been friends for a long time, and it's so good to be on your podcast. And thank you for inviting me today.
Of course. I truly do admire the way that you've been so intentional about the values of your organization. I remember when you were first kicking off, and I feel like you almost had these from the very beginning. And they've been very clear and consistent. So when you were starting your organization and as you've kind of grown with it, what was your process for really defining those corporate values?
Well, that's a great question. I think the very first leadership meeting we had, I pulled a couple former employees who used to work for me, and we got together. And three I kind of had in my head, and the fourth really came from those two, to be quite honest. But ever since that day, from those core values, we haven't changed. And really it was, to me, part of it is committing to the cause. And so we're trying to always be committed to our clients, being responsive, passionate, intentional, and diligent in everything we do. Treat others like you want to be treated, the golden rule. That's always been kind of my motto, for whatever I do. And so we want to treat our clients and our colleagues with mindfulness, humility, respect, and integrity. It's a very, very big part of that. Celebrate the journey. As you know, Megan, I like to celebrate the journey. I like to celebrate when we have, we believe in working hard, but we want to recognize our employees. And as they do well and the company does well, we want to basically make sure that we're rewarding them for that, and then have fun as we're doing it. So work hard and then have fun as we're doing it. The last one that's our core value is focusing on the leading edge. And that was something that the two folks that were with me kind of said, hey, we came from a company that was really with just one technology, and we didn't have the opportunity to focus in other areas. And so no matter what, let's really embrace, continuous learning and the ability to implement innovative technologies, maybe not on the bleeding edge, but on the cutting edge, to make sure that we don't stay with status quo, older technologies. Let's do what's best for our clients and implement the right kind of cutting edge technology. So that's where those core values they came from. That was our first leadership meeting, and they've never changed since then. That was in 2020.
So it sounds very early 2020 for the record.
It was February of 2020.
I remember that was like January of 2020, I think was that, or even December of 2019. It sounds like three of those really came from your past experiences, things that you've seen working well in other organizations. I'm shocked that I would not have guessed that the leading edge did not come from you, given your history with innovation, giving that commitment to looking forward and really always having that new innovative approach to things.
Yeah, it's funny that leading edge was something that it was easy for me to say yes to. All right. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. I think when I was thinking more with the culture, it was more of how we treat each other and how we treat our clients, and then how much work and effort are we putting into this. So, and then they all just kind of mesh together. And so A lot of it did come from my experience over the years. When you have an organization that is really, if you treat others like you want to be treated, or how they want to be treated, sometimes, more importantly, it really puts together a culture where everyone is trying to put their best. You disagree with folks, but you're doing it in a respectful way. And that's okay. It's okay not to agree, but but doing it in a way that you would appreciate someone not disagreeing with you, and you learn from that, and you have then innovative ideas going across back and forth without the fear that someone's going to kind of smack that idea away just because they don't like that idea. And so that was a big part of it. Committing to the cause for me was always about making sure that, there's so many things you do. I saw in some companies that people would just go through and an everyday kind of churn where they weren't really trying to be passionate about what they were doing. They were just kind of going through the motions. And that's what I didn't want that for Scalesology, and the people we hire, they don't want that either. And so that's why it works so well.
What I love is these phrases are they are phrases, right? These values, these core values are not just respect, integrity, right? These really broad topics. It paints this picture of what that culture looks like. And I think that that's where it's really done a beautiful job of translating something of what those theoretical nice things are to have to how you actually behave.
Mm. Very true. Absolutely. I think, one of the things that we do is we believe in these core values so much that if you look at one of our job postings, you're going to see that's the first thing that's on there. And it's because that's important to us. As we go through the interview process with new employees, I have one job with the interview process. My number one job is to make sure that someone we hire is they believe in these core values. Because if they don't, they're not going to fit in with our organization. I don't care how talented or smart they are. If they don't really believe in those core values, then they're just not going to work well with our team. And so that's, and we practice those core values in everything we do.
I love that thought of believing in them, right? It's not that you're not a culture fit, which is a kind of a faux pas now, is to say people aren't
Sure.
culture fits, and to say, do you have these shared beliefs? Are these beliefs that you're willing to adopt with it? How do you suss that out in an interview? Because you're a pretty savvy interviewer.
It's funny. It's not about, you want to have a diverse group.
Mhm.
You want to have diversity within your team. So it's not about everyone looking the same or acting the same. It's really about respect and integrity and your belief in the common cause. It's not real hard to figure out, hey, let's celebrate everyone's victories. And when they do well, when someone else does well, you pat them on the back, say, great job. You don't have to be a certain mindset for that, other than the mindset of just making sure that you are encouraging other people when they're doing well. And you want someone to pat you on the back when you do well, right? Treating others like you would like to be treated really is about, and sometimes it's about how they want to be treated, right? There's certain cultural things, there's differences, and maybe it's religion, maybe it's in the way they act in their culture and how they grew up. That's great. That diversity is fabulous. And so let's embrace that, and let's treat others like they would want to be treated within that. And that's what that it's all about. It's not trying to have these clones of everyone being the same. It's more about, let's embrace the diversity of everyone, and let's just make sure that we're doing it in a way that's respectful and mindful of how they are embracing themselves and their culture and their beliefs.
Love that. I love I love how you're modeling it so clearly. And it was funny because we were just on the call as we were prepping it and chatting before this, talking about the way that that culture has really been modeled throughout the organization and pretty quickly. Do you mind sharing a couple of examples of how that's really
Sure.
been
I
a
mean,
fruition?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, some are real intentional, and some are just, they kind of happen. The intentional ones is we have a core values award every year. And so every year and it's so hard. It's so hard to pick who's going to win. I mean, it's one of the things I dread, because it's like, now I feel like the last couple of years, I feel like I need to get to everyone in the company, but you have to pick someone. And so it's so hard to do. But we do it, and the reason we do it is, they get a bonus. they get a bonus, and we want to just show that we are really the core values are important to us and everything we do. And so if we're willing to do that, or willing to rate it and everything else, then that means that it's not a popularity contest. It's more of what are things that within those core values you've done in the year that just transcends maybe above of everyone else. And that's the hard part. I have to do that. That's very intentional. We have things, we have folks that live in different various areas, right? And so for us, we have little things like water cooler talk time. And water cooler talk time is we don't talk about work, but we actually all get on a screen and we talk about whatever anyone wants to talk about. And those are always fun conversations. But the thing that I think it's funny that you were talking about the background here that I have. I gave everyone this background, and because someone asked me about it one day. I've never asked anyone to put their background on theirs for their background. They can blur it, they can do whatever they want, or have they all do it, and they all do it because I think they're proud. I think of the company and the brand and what this represents. And so the other thing we always do is we always have our cameras on. That's one thing then when I first started in 2020, one of our employees didn't. And I just mentioned, hey, you know what, Scalesology, we have our cameras on. And the reason being is I want to see that you interact and we want to talk with each other like we're in the same room. We're all in different places. At that time, it was a pandemic. We couldn't get in the same room. And so that then really transcended into everyone always has their camera on. So if our clients don't want to have their camera on, that's fine. But we typically put it on, and usually they respond, and it allows us to have a better interaction with our clients and certainly with our colleagues when we meet together.
I love those small steps that you can take. And I talk at leaders at all levels, as you know. And I was talking with an executive vice president just, I want to say, was it this week or last week? And she was lamenting about how no one at their organization turns on cameras and how much of a push it is, and how she keeps her camera on despite how hard it is, right? And being able to have those conversations and being able to lead that charge and have those difficult cultural things of instilling new values or instilling new norms for people that maybe aren't as comfortable with it or consistent.
It's absolutely right. I mean, and it has to start at the top, right? You have to, as part of my job, I think you mentioned that when you read the bio, is for me to create an atmosphere and a culture, not only for our clients, but for our colleagues and our workforce that they're proud to be a part of and they feel safe in, and that way they can innovate, they can work hard, they can enjoy their accomplishments when they achieve those. And without that culture and really, coming from the top and down and really embracing that, I think everyone else embraces it as well. And so that's important. So every once in a while in our water cooler talk time, we're not allowed to talk about work. And I screw up and I talk about work for a second. And then I always put $1 on a little jar, and that goes to one of our little things. And so I have to, even myself, I got to check myself. I got to make sure, I'm doing better lately, but every once in a while I'm still, it's tough for me to stop because I'm so excited about it. But yeah, so those are rules. I have to live with those rules as well. So that's what it's all about.
What are some of those actual best practices that you wouldn't mind sharing some of those secrets to other people that are listening because you've been so intentional with it?
Well, I think one thing is you have to really embrace, think about the culture that you're trying to put out there. I mean, so we follow a thing called EOS, and usually there's four main points and the core values, and that kind of leads. And I think I would have done it despite if we're running on an entrepreneurial operating system or not, because I believe in it so much. But I think once you have these core values, I think you have to really, um, get buy-in from everyone, and then you embrace it. And not only it's not one of those things where, okay, you guys do that and I don't do that. I think we all do it, and we all make sure we adhere to it. And I think when you do those things, whatever those core values are, I think it really starts to um, permeate and through the organization, and that's what you want. Culture is something that isn't built in a day. It takes time. It takes time to really build, and unfortunately sometimes it can take little actions to destroy it, right, over some time. So but when you do have a solid culture, it really, I think, enables your everyone in the organization to work at their best level. And to really have a meaningful career that they enjoy, from work-life balance and all that's important, but they're doing something they believe in, and with that, and they know that everyone has their back and is part of that culture. So it's such a big thing, and culture is something that is a living, breathing thing. So you have to always feed it. You always have to nurture it, because then if you don't do that, it's going to die on the vine for you. And you see different organizations with great culture, and they're so much more productive, and there's so much more, the employees are so much happier than in other places. So that's a big part of what we do at Scalesology. It's really about that culture.
I love that. And that led right into the question I wanted to ask, which I think is pretty much you answered it though, is I've had the privilege of watching your organization grow leaps and bounds just with the team, just geographically in every facet of it. And I want to say, how do you think that culture's played a key role in that?
Well, I think part of it is we've hired intentionally the people that kind of fit and believe in that culture. Luckily, I've hired everyone smarter than me, so that makes it easy because they get it, and they're really talented people, and that makes it fun. Um, but I think you those the culture though is just a place where, I think treating others like you want to be treated is such an important thing, because then you can disagree with folks. It's okay to disagree, but do it in a respectful way. And when you do that, it really allows people to be who they need to be the best person they can, and the most productive employee they can be, and vice versa with, if things aren't always going well, with folks. And so if you have an honest conversation with them, they respect you for it, and then they get better. And so it goes both ways. So.
I love hearing it. Those culture and those cultural elements and those core values are such a foundation for solid leadership, where you're able to really relate back to something. You have those shared beliefs that are so well established that it really gives your team a lot of permission to take on leadership responsibilities, to step up, to say something. And so often I see organizations really missing that, the way that they want to empower their team. And I think that you have such an empowering aspect to both the culture that you've created very intentionally, as well as the flexibility, I'll say, with those values of how people are really able to apply and use those values so that it's something that they can believe in and they can show up with.
Absolutely, Megan. I mean, one of our beliefs also is, everyone has a number, right? And so that goes into the commitment to the cause. But why is that important? Because the number they have, maybe it's a goal they have for a quarter or something, that goes into the overall goal of the company. And so when they do well, they see how that transcends into helping the company out, and then that helps the whole team out. Most people want to be a part of a team, and you have to know how much value you're adding to that team. And so you can't do that unless you have metrics to measure some of those things. And so that's part of that commitment to the cause. But if you don't know what your goals are, and you don't know how you're helping your team, it's kind of hard to be committed to the cause. What am I committed to? So that's part of it as well. And so again, that's all about that culture, and it's all about those things that, it's really, I get a smile on my face when folks are excited about that, and they are excited. I mean, every quarter we talk about where are we with our goals last quarter, where are we our goals this quarter. At one point when we had new sales, we in Slack we'd throw that out, and I thought, well, maybe it's just like, is that bragging or whatever? I was worried about that, and one of our developers said, Ken, I love to see when we have new clients and we have new sales and things. I like when you do that. I'm like, okay, great. Then we will do that every time. And so
I was gonna say,
so
that's
we've continued
celebrating the journey right there.
celebrating the journey. That's exactly right.
You
And
taught the team
so,
that.
yeah. And so, they live it and they breathe it. And so do I. And that's what I love about our team and our company.
I have so loved this conversation just because every time we talk, I hear more of these nuggets, right? It's not just committing to the cause where you think it's client causes, it's internal, it's something very, very fluffy, but you're able to really build the processes and the infrastructure around these so that they aren't They aren't just the words that you're throwing up somewhere. They are truly a decision-making guide on how you operate, the choices that you make, what you guys are going to do, and how. Which I know just sounds repetitive almost in a way, but to see it come to life in those specific instances, in those specific processes, in those tools that you use, really with this filter over it, it's truly inspiring.
Well, you're very kind, Megan. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about the Scalesology, the journey, of course, sharing those values. If you are looking for new values, maybe you want to adopt some of Ken's. They're pretty fantastic, but definitely taking that journey and that own step. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, Ken?
No, I think that's great. This is great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Really, I always love talking to you, as you know, and this has been a fun conversation as well.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to get to dive in a little bit deeper. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Culture Conversations with Ken Scales. We will put all of his contact information in the show notes. So if you do need to contact Ken, you want to understand a little bit more about some of the magic that he's creating over at Scalesology, please do reach out to him. He is beautifully blending that technology for organizations to scale. And clearly, it's not just about the technology, it's about the culture and how they work. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I really appreciate it.